The Seattle Seahawks are flying to Chicago for a Thursday night football, and they're one game back from the NFC West division lead. Going to be taking on the Bears team, who are coming off another loss against Detroit in a tough fashion. My name is Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to break down this Thursday night football, last Thursday night football of the 2024 season game between the Seahawks and Bears. But before we get into that, Ryan and I, we want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we hope you all have a phenomenal week with your families. If you like the work that we do and the content that we put out and are excited for the 2025 offseason, be sure to subscribe to the Tracy Take, tackle that bell to get notified when we release new content, and leave a like and a comment. Let us know who you think will win and why. Ryan, both these teams suffered tough losses in Week 16. In totally different fashion. Seahawks, I thought, played well, kept it competitive against a really good Vikings team, but unfortunately kind of the same errors, it seems like, that keep popping up were what kind of caused their loss today. And the Bears, the same errors kept popping up just like every other week that they've had over the past 9 weeks. Have they lost 9 in a row now? Or is it 10?
I believe so.
It's amazing. They haven't won since the bye, and what's really funny about it, too, is it's just – I'm not a big braggadocious or like taunting guy in general whenever I played sports, more just because of the fact of like what happens to Tyreek Stevenson when you're shaking in the end zone against Washington. They haven't won a game since that moment. Since that Hail Mary against Washington.
They should have been 6-2, but instead they became 5-3 or 4-3. Or sorry, they should have been 5-2, and then instead they
Yeah.
We know how it went, and totally it's not even like to be fair. So that game, they got their butts kicked against Arizona. They let New England kick their butts, which is really bad.
Yeah.
And then they had a couple close games here and there, and then like they're kind of back to getting their butts kicked these last 3 weeks. And granted, they've played Minnesota and Detroit, but San Francisco 3 weeks ago, that's a bad loss.
Well, that was
to 13.
That was the first game that Matt Eberflus, after Matt Eberflus got fired.
That's fair.
To your point, so after your Patriots loss, they should beat the Packers, but a blocked field goal. Then the Vikings, they had other field goal troubles, and they lost to the Vikings 30-27. And then the Lions game was a Thanksgiving game where they had a clock management. But in general, though, I will say actually they still kind of got outclassed by Detroit, in my opinion.
Yeah, Detroit came out totally in the second half.
Yeah. The Bears team, and this is for Seahawks, you can take solace in this, knowing who you're playing on Thursday. They're just organizationally, they're just completely dysfunctional. I think there's been so much talk about the Jets and like Aaron Rodgers, like throughout the majority of the season, and how dysfunctional they've been because of the firing of Robert Saleh in like week 6, and the GM was fired a couple weeks later. Then like what's going to be going on? I think now this is like the Bears are now the new 2024 Jets when it comes to the overall dysfunction that's going on in the organization. You watch this game today against the Lions, and there was moments, and to be fair, the Lions are one of the top teams, maybe Super Bowl favorites. So they beat them down really bad. That being said, it's offensively like, man, Caleb Williams looks like Caleb Williams looks like a chicken that cuts his head off and then starts running around. Like, it looks like he kind of does it to himself sometimes. Offensive line's not playing great, but I feel like you got the receiving core there. But then there's just then on top of that too, there's no organizational system in place because there's no head coach. It's just kind of a lost season.
That's kind of
for Chicago.
That's kind of my impression of Chicago right now. Is like, I think I said this last week, but it feels like the inmates are running the asylum a little bit. Like, you got Matt Eberflus fired. You got your offensive coordinator fired. You're now on your interim offensive coordinator, interim head coach, and I believe interim defensive coordinator now, because I believe like the D-line coach is now the interim head coach. Like, there's just a whole bunch of people in roles that they're not necessarily qualified to be in, and it's just it's a tough spot for the Chicago Bears right now. So I'm very curious to see who goes there this offseason. I've heard rumors that it's going to be Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels, which I think would be very interesting because that's a very structured approach. And by structured, I mean like Mike Vrabel, Josh McDaniels run very tight ships. There's not a whole lot of room for painted fingernails and extracurriculars that I just am curious culturally how that would work if those are the guys that go there.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson has also been a name that's been thrown around a lot, that he could go there and potentially work some magic, which I think would be a much different approach than Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels.
Part of me would almost feel, I feel like Ben Johnson wouldn't do that to Detroit. I feel like he'd rather go to
Yeah.
Jacksonville.
Honestly.
I don't know if he'd want to do that to Detroit.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they win a Super Bowl. I bet Detroit would actually, if he was the Bears head coach, they would have welcomed him. Maybe the first time, but yeah. So that's because there's still so much talent. Like you can see the potential on the scene, but at the same time, though, too. Like I thought about this, Caleb Williams, like. He's still a rookie. Rome Odunze, he's actually playing well, but like they're still rookies. Like it's still just going to be tough. And they're living in Chicago. Then they're going to be going through a regime change their first year. So like it takes a lot of time. It's easy to pick apart and we're critiquing them like we're appropriately. That's kind of our job. That's what we want our jobs to be. At least we don't know if we're doing it well or not, but that's a separate conversation. You can see the potential that's there. I think Mike Vrabel, the defense to me is what's kind of shocking because I feel like there's talent on this defense and they are just not doing well. But we'll have to see. Seattle though, and this is like Seattle fans, if you're watching this, we're talking about the Bears. I think if you guys have the weapons to take apart the Chicago Bears defense, Jackson Smith-Njigba is having a great season. DK Metcalf is phenomenal. Geno Smith played better today, but once again, though, there's just those Geno Smith errors that pop their heads up. He had a couple of picks today as well. And it's just kind of those things that just rear their heads up that just kind of feel like stall this team as well. They're playing a little bit better. Not a little bit better. They're playing better on the defensive front. They've been getting healthier overall. I feel like even too, we haven't seen the best yet from the secondary. Now that being said, to be fair to them today, they were going up against Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and so like they were gonna get their punches in.
That's a tough matchup.
But that being said, though, Seahawks still put this Vikings team in a 4-minute drill where like they had to go down and score a touchdown, and Justin Jefferson and them just won. So I think it's the positives that you want to take from that. That all being said, though, like they are now a game back from the Rams, still with a game to play against them. So they got to win this game, and they're going to have extra rest going into that Week 18 game, which sounds like that's probably going to be the Sunday night football game. I would think maybe it could be a Saturday game because I know the Lions are playing Monday night, and so I don't know if the NFL is going to want to do a Monday night football game then to Saturday, maybe to make them Sunday night football to decide the number 1 seed with Minnesota. But in this game, though, for me, correct me if I'm wrong, I think if Geno Smith and them just take care of the ball, then I think they're going to be fine in this one.
Yeah. I think this, especially with the way this defense has been playing as of late, I really think going in and I don't want to say have a conservative game plan on offense, like run the game plan that you feel attacks the Chicago Bears defense the best. But if they can protect the football, win the turnover battle, I just feel like they're going to be too talented and too well put together for this Chicago Bears team, because there is definitely talent on this Chicago Bears team. It's just not in a cohesive unit. They're not playing as a team at the moment.
Well, and to your point too, I'm going to steal your point as well. You always talk about for these short and week games, these Thursday night football games, the team with the more talent is going to be the one that probably comes out victorious. And as I've already mentioned DK Metcalf, Jack Smith-Njigba. I haven't talked about Kenneth Walker at all yet,
Or Zach Charbonnet.
Or Zach Charbonnet, or just that running back group, because they're not the issue when it comes to running game. This offensive line is a hindrance in that category. Chicago, they're averaging 134 rushing yards allowed defensively. They're 26 overall rushing yards of rushing defense when it comes to yards allowed. And I think they can step that up. And I think they could exploit that because Seattle, they're 30th overall rushing yards per game with 91.3. And today, but since their bye, though, they have had multiple games of over 120 rushing yards per game. They only had 81 today.
Yeah.
But they're going up against the Vikings defense, which I think is one of the best in the league. They're super aggressive, and it was just a poor matchup for them today. But I think they'll have a better matchup going up against Chicago.
They also, I know Kenneth Walker was healthy today, but I remember after week 1, he had an oblique injury, so he missed like 2 or 3 weeks, and then he had another injury that held him out for a couple of weeks. And he is their primary back, And so I know that is one thing that has kind of slowed down this running game is just he's been banged up this year so far.
Yeah. So I'd be looking for Kenneth Walker. I wouldn't be surprised if Kenneth Walker goes off and has over 100 rushing yards against Chicago. I think that's going to be the way that they do that. I think JSN, he has another 8-catch, 75-yard game with a touchdown as well. And I think typical Chicago game for them is they're going to get down early, then they're going to have a fourth quarter garbage time amount of points. That's where they're going to get a lot of their offensive yards and their points.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out this channel. We are both going with the Seahawks in this matchup. Leave a comment down below on who you think is going to come out ahead. Will it be the Seattle Seahawks? Will it be the Chicago Bears? And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.